So let's see how to recreate the famous sequence from the song On the Run by Pink Floyd on the Moog Mother 32. So let's first see how to create the pattern. If you hold the pattern button down and tap on the arrow keys, you can switch to different patterns. I'm going to leave it on number 1. Now if I hold down Shift, Reset Pattern, it will reset the current pattern. So when I run the pattern, you can hear that it's empty. So now let's see how to enter in notes in this pattern. I like using step mode. To enable step mode, hold Shift and hit the right arrow button. The sequence we're about to create has 8 steps, so I'll tap Set End and then tap 8 to limit the range of the steps of the sequence to 8 steps. Now tap Shift 1 to edit the first step. I'll go an octave below. The first note in our sequence is E, so I'll tap E. Now Shift 2 to edit the second note. The second note is a G. Shift 3 for the third note. Third note's an A. Shift 4. The fourth note is a G again. Shift 5 for the fifth note. We need to go an octave above to D. Shift sixth note. It's a C. We already had that. Shift 7 for the second last note, which is a D. And Shift 8 for the last note is an E. Now that we're done entering the notes, I can hold down Shift 8 to get out of edit mode. And now when I hit run, we can hear the sequence. Let's speed it up. That sounds about right. Okay, now that we have the sequence, let's work on the sound. First thing we need to change is the oscillator. It needs to be a square shape. So make sure the pulse width is right in the center so we get a nice clean square sound. Make sure the mix is all the way to the VCO. Amp envelope, make sure the sustain is on, because if the sustain is off, you get more of a plucky sound, which is not what we're going for. You can increase the decay, which is actually the release. And now it's just a matter of playing around with the cutoff and resonance. Now to give the sound a bit more of that chorusing type effect, I would use an LFO to modulate the pulse width. Make sure the LFO is relatively fast. I'll just open up the cutoff so we can hear it a bit better and increase that VCO mod amount just a wee bit. When it's all the way down, it's a very clean sound, but having that just a little bit up thickens up the sound and makes it sound a lot better. So that's a little trick to create that chorusing or unison detune type effect. Sounds pretty good. Now on the original Pink Floyd record, the sequence was actually a half step down. So I'll just bring this frequency dial down to bring it down a half step. Approximately, that is. Now we can make the sound a bit better by adding on some patch bay connections. We could take the keyboard CV out and connect that to the VCF cutoff. This will simulate key tracking. So now lower notes will have a lower cutoff value and higher notes a higher value. Alright, so without it, a bit more dynamic with this key tracking. Now unfortunately there's no way to drive the filter to give it more bite, but what we can do is use the envelope generator CV out and connect that to the VCA CV in. Now the envelope generator is already controlling the VCA, so this is just going to increase the overall depth of the same. Now I want control over this feature, so I'm going to connect it to the Mix 2 input. And from the VC Mix, I'll connect that to the VCA CV. Make sure the VC Mix is all the way down. Plug that to the VCA CV. So now when I bring the VC Mix up, I'm adding more gain. That's all the way to the maximum. I believe this is how the song opens up. Now we're hearing that clicking sound, and with the sustain down it's even worse. So I'd leave the sustain on and just increase that decay dial, which is actually increasing the release amount. A little bit cleaner. A little bit more bite in the sound thanks to our patching. One thing to keep in mind while doing this whole envelope generator to the VCA CV is that make sure your resonance is up. If it isn't, let me bring the volume down first. So when the resonance is down, you hear the sound distorts, and you actually get a new timbre. It's a pretty interesting sound, very aggressive actually, but that's not what we're going for right now, so I'll make sure the resonance is up, and now we don't have that distorted timbre. I can bring the volume back up now. That's with the noise. So there you go. That's how to create the On the Run sequence by Pink Floyd on the Moog Mother 32.